In this episode, I'm going to take a look at the size difference between the old Epic and the new Epic, which is called Legion. Okay, so we're on the Warhammer community site, and the first thing we're looking at is the infantry of the Solar Auxiliary, or Imperial Guard as they used to be called. And we can see there is a significant difference in size. The old Epic is a lot smaller. Other than the basing, I mean, the basing is just a preference. I mean, obviously in the new stuff it's on round bases, where in the old Epic is on square. I don't see that being a massive issue. If you want to base them on square bases rather than round, that's just a preference, I guess. If we're looking at the Ogrins, and yeah, that is a significant height difference from the old to the new. I mean, those old Ogrins next to the new ones make the old Ogrins look like dwarves. I mean, they've practically doubled in size. Likewise, Space Marines are massively bigger. And I think this is where your problem is not necessarily going to be, I mean, playing Space Marines, because if you're playing Space Marines, you're probably going to want to play the new stuff anyway. But it's them putting these guys up against Xenos if you're wanting to play this game set in the 40k period, and bringing in other Xenos races such as Orcs, Eldar, Chaos, and Tyranids and stuff, things like that. I think this is where it's going to be problematic. I mean, the tanks are, yeah, I mean, they're just a lot smaller. I mean, it's a completely different scale. And I don't think you're going to be able to mix the scales, to be perfectly honest, because they're just going to look silly next to the new stuff. And we get down to sort of the Space Marine vehicles, and again, there is a significant difference. I mean, it's not a huge one in comparison on some, like the rhinos and stuff. I mean, it's slightly bigger, but it's not that big that it looks that it's that noticeable in honesty. But the tanks are a lot bigger. I mean, that's significantly smaller compared to the new one. I think when we get to these sorts of tanks, the heavy tanks, super heavy tanks, is where that difference is just far too different. I mean, that is significantly bigger than the old ones. I mean, you're not going to be able to field that new one there alongside these guys here. Unfortunately. And I think the next problem will be the Titans. The newer Titans, apart from looking better, they will be significantly bigger. So we can see it here. I mean, the new Reaver is basically twice the size of the old one. I mean, you aren't going to feel these ones and this one and say they're both the same. It's just, yeah, it's not doable. And likewise, when you go up to the Warlord Titans, I mean, not only is it height bigger, but it's significantly chunkier. and the newer ones are better kits. I mean, I know there's a nostalgia for old Epic and things like that, but these newer ones are going to be better kits overall. I think the problem is going to be building it against Xenos, the original Xenos from Epic Armageddon and Epic 40k, because the new stuff is going to be significantly bigger. I mean, we're talking around 8 to 10 mil, whereas old Epic were 6 mil. So there's going to be a significant difference, and when you're going to be fielding the new stuff against a original Xenos Epic, it's going to be quite noticeable. I mean, it's not. I mean, some people might think, don't really care, but I don't think you're going to be able to mix the two different ones for the Space Marine and Imperial forces, because the scale will be noticeable. I mean, significantly noticeable. But fielding the new stuff against an old Xenos army, if you're wanting to set your games in the 40k his period, I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. To be personally honest, I mean, it's just preference. If you're okay about it, that's fine. I think it's going to be problematic trying to mix, like I said, the old Space Marine and Guard with the new stuff, but because there's just too much of a big scale difference there, which means that eventually, if they do decide to bring in Xenos Rangers, then you're obviously going to get a whole bunch of new stuff. I mean, Epic was problematic anyway in regards to scale. There were a lot of vehicles that were brought into the Epic game that were probably not quite the right size in reality, if compared to what their real counterpart would have been on the battlefield. So it was a bit hit and miss anyway. It was supposed to be 6 mil, but sometimes some vehicles and stuff were probably smaller than they should have been at that scale. So I don't think it's going to be a big problem getting new stuff against an old Xenos army, but I don't think you're going to be able to mix original classic Epic Imperial forces with the new stuff, because the scale difference is considerable. It is noticeable, and as you've seen in the pictures, it's quite noticeable in some vehicles. Some you might be able to get away with, but others I don't think you will, unfortunately. Okay, that's all for this week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.